Okay, good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock here on the East Coast. Welcome to the latest edition of the Rittenhouse Open Online Courses, or ROOCs. Today's topic, this afternoon's topic, is the NISO Plus Conference, which is hot off the presses. It just occurred earlier this week in Baltimore, Maryland. Today we're going to do some takeaways and insights into this conference and how it can be relevant to specifically libraries, but also other stakeholders who have an interest in NISO and what NISO is up to. So thanks for joining. Who am I? My name is Meg White. I am the Director of Technology Services here at Rittenhouse Book Distributors. I am joined by Nicole Gallo, who's our Executive Director of Sales and Marketing. And we are so pleased today to have a special guest, Jason Griffey, who is the Director of Strategic Initiatives at NISO. Jason, if you want to say hello, he's via phone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for including me. I like to point out, since we're speaking to a group of librarians primarily, that I am also a librarian. I happen to be Director of Strategic Initiatives at NISO, but my background and degree is in librarianship. So.
We love libraries and librarians, so good folks. Just some housekeeping this afternoon very quickly. This session will be recorded and made available on the Rittenhouse YouTube channel. Audio is muted for participants, but that doesn't mean we don't want you to participate. So if you would use the GoToMeeting tools on your toolbar, if you have a question or comment this afternoon, please do chime in. We're going to keep this to a half an hour, but we will reserve time at the end for questions. So use that GoToWebinar question tool. So that's our housekeeping. So our agenda, pretty straightforward. We're going to get a quick primer on NISO for those of you who may or may not be familiar with the organization and what they're up to. And Jason and I will I was lucky enough to attend the meeting. Of course, Jason was as well. We both prepared our top 3 takeaways from the meeting. So we'll take a whack at discussing those and then open the floor for your questions or comments. So, as I mentioned, the meeting was this past week, February 23rd through 25th in Baltimore, which is also where NISO is located. So what is this organization, the National Information Standards Organization? It is a nonprofit, and it is accredited by the American Standards Institute. NISO identifies, develops, maintains, and publishes technical standards. These are the folks that build the tools that allow different services and information to be built and maintained, things that we use, we may or may not know it, to do our jobs every day. So what does this really mean for librarians and libraries, and also for publishers and technology firms? This is really where all 3 of these constituents can get together and develop the infrastructure that allows these organizations to work together. I think the key for me in thinking about NISO is the collaboration that happens between all the stakeholders that allow solutions to be developed that enhance the future of operations and form a foundation for the future. So, I'm kind of stealing Jason's thunder since this is kind of his bread and butter. But Jason, do you have anything to add to either of those 2 slides or those 2 comments?
Yeah, that's a really great summary of what it is we do, and I just like to kind of further that that thought that it really is a necessity that the work we do be done by all of the members of the sort of information ecosystem. It's not that a standard is only a standard one if it addresses all of the needs that are being put forward and if all of the stakeholders take it up. It doesn't really do anything unless people are invested in it and use it. And so when a need is identified, whether that's in a new sort of technology or whether that's in a new type of connection that needs to happen between publishers and libraries, it can't be one side or the other that sort of develops and works on a standard. It really does have to sort of be all of the voices that are a part of the ecosystem that come to some solution for how that works. And so it's one of the things that brought me initially to NISO. It's one of the things that I'm sort of most excited about our work, is that it really does sort of touch very broadly all of the pieces of how information is generated, produced, consumed, and flows sort of all the way through our world.
Right. I agree. So, and just for the audience, and you may or may not be familiar with this, but some of the things that NISO does in our everyday work, we're talking about the sushi standard for harvesting, usage statistics, we're talking about Dublin Core.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, on the journal side, a well-structured and complete abstract, and the power of that in terms of interoperability across different platforms and different publishers, and the value that creates for researchers and users. This all goes back to NISO because all the stakeholders, as Jason said, got together in a room, the room where it happens, actually, and decided that this would be the common framework to make sure that operationally all of these services could be executed.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Historically, if you look back, NISO's had its hand in a whole lot of the sort of standards that are now just commonplace in our world. The initial standard that became MARC was NISO helped develop that. ISSN was a standard, is a standard, international standard that began through some of NISO's work. So yeah, it's the sort of thing that has long legs if it's done well.
it's definitely the intel inside, whether we know it or not, right?
Yes.
So on to the conference, and this was a special year for NISO. This is the organization's annual gathering of stakeholders and more importantly, perhaps working groups that actually are working on these standards, actively developing new standards, maintaining existing standards. But this year, the conference was enhanced by the addition of NFAIS, the National Federation of Advanced Information Services. And you may or may not be aware, NISO and NFAIS actually merged in July of 2019. And really, the idea behind this was leveraging the power and the shared mission of both of these organizations. So, typical example of 1 + 1 doesn't necessarily equal 2. 1 + 1 can exponentially increase the power of 2, and just brings an organization with two organizations with like mission into the fold. So important to point out too, this conference was sold out this year. So just being an attendee, there was definitely a buzz, a lot of momentum, and a successful merger of these two organizations and seamlessly, and it carried right into the conference this year.
Oh, that's
Okay.
great. That's great to hear. The conference was a super exciting opportunity for us. It's actually NISO's first conference. We were taking up the mantle. NFAIS had traditionally had an annual conference, and NISO had not. And so through that merger, we were able to sort of, take the idea and concept a little further with all of the stakeholders involved, and really put something together that I think was it's pretty special, I think.
Yeah, great buzz, great momentum. So with that, speaking of momentum, we've got the ball rolling. Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about your top 4 takeaways from the conference.
Sure. And I cheated a little bit. My takeaways for the conference really have to do with sort of the conference as a whole, and not necessarily the kind of content of the conference. I was involved very heavily as the director of the conference, and the things that I tried to make sure were a part of the conference that I think were really important to the attendees were these, and the 3 that I really wanted to talk through a little bit was that we tried very hard to structure the topics of the conference, and we had sessions on everything from artificial intelligence and virtual reality to the emerging credit standard, and updates on some of the working groups and the standards that they're going through now. So we had everything from sort of very sort of theoretical sessions all the way down to very, very nuts and bolts, very kind of in the weeds, getting things done sessions. And across all of those, the thing that I kept hearing from people was that we had built in an opportunity for conversation as a part of the learning process. of the conference rather than just presentation. We did have experts. We had session leaders. We had experts in the field that were in front and sort of setting the stage and giving the presentation that set the level for each of the topics. But the real key and the real important part that I helped try to design into the conference, and then also that I heard from attendees throughout the conference, was this that we set aside time specifically in the schedule for a conversation to happen between both the attendees, so they could find common problems and then discuss them with the experts that we had on hand. So it was this sort of very rich opportunity for people to sort of realize the shared opportunities and problems they had, and then have people right there on hand that could hopefully help them with it. I think that was really, it was really important, and I think that was something that felt very vibrant as a part of the conference. One of the actual sort of topic pieces that came out, one of the things that that emerged from the conference for me, was what I called here on the slide the necessity of infrastructure. We had two just really amazing keynote presentations. One from Dr. Amy Brand, the director of the MIT Press, and her. She opened the conference with a keynote called "The Other I Word: Infrastructure and the Future of Knowledge," and she talked very heavily about how sort of the production of knowledge relies on these hidden infrastructures that we sometimes take for granted. And NISO is one of those infrastructures, as we had said. Sometimes these standards that we work on operate invisibly in the background without really people realizing the amount of work and effort and care that goes into their production. And so I thought that was really kind of a fascinating talk. And then we closed the conference with a keynote from Dana Boyd, who's a researcher at Microsoft Research and the president of a research group in New York called Data and Society, where they study her research group studies this sort of use of data in knowledge production. And her closing keynote was questioning the legitimacy of data, and that was one where she sort of explored the ways in which data can be twisted and turned in order to reach what may be untrue conclusions. And one of the solutions that she gave as a part of this was that if we have in certain kinds of infrastructures that are used in order to move that data into knowledge, that it can help prevent the sort of twisting and turning that can happen when those infrastructures are missing. And so it really I thought it was a fascinating thing that on both ends of the conference we had keynoters that decided to pull out the word infrastructure, since it is so sort of key to what NISO does. I thought that was a really great takeaway, that the importance of those things in our world of information. And then the last sort of real takeaway that I had was that for the conference, we had this real, I said just a moment ago, we had this real sort of distinction between sessions that we sort of felt of as broad. We had these sort of theoretical sessions, and then we had these sort of very deep sessions that went and down and got into the sort of nitty gritty of the of standards and of standards production and how those work. And that sort of reflected that merger that you had actually talked about earlier between NISO and NFAIS. NFAIS historically had been a very sort of theoretical, future-forward imaginative group of people. They were really sort of looking out at the horizon and seeing what was coming, whereas NISO was really the much more practical, much more sort of, again, getting their hands dirty sort of group of people who were doing the implementations, but not necessarily looking at that sort of horizon and trying to see what was coming. They were really just dealing with the now. And so that combination really, I think, had a huge amount of potential that was realized at this conference. Our executive director, Todd Carpenter, said during his closing comments for the NISO Plus conference that what he was really excited about was what was going to happen after the conference, right? That these
That was awesome. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that combination of the seeing what is coming, but having the ability to do the hard work to take that and make it real, that gives us a huge amount of opportunity to then sort of move forward into the future with a purpose and outcomes in hand. We can sort of make it work rather than sort of waiting for it to come to us. And I was really inspired by that. That was a real I think a real important message for everyone in our community, that we can see the things that are coming and we can affect them. We can make them what we want them to be, if we can get everybody on board and really, again, roll up our sleeves and get to work on it. So, and then I cheated again. I said, apologies. I cheated a little bit. I did put 4 on there. And the reason I put 4 on there is that we are already, literally today, I have been preparing for next year's conference. As you pointed out, this year we sold out. We sold out almost a month before the conference itself, where we had to start turning people away because we had hit the limit of we had hit our numbers as far as number of people. We just couldn't let anybody else in. Next year, we're going to have a little bigger space. We're going to have a little more people, a few more people that we can let in. But I am willing to bet it is going to sell out again, because we've got some really exciting things planned, and I think this year showed that the format and the topics were really exciting for our community. So I hope that everyone goes ahead and sort of checks those dates off their calendar for next year. It's February 21st to the 23rd of 2021. We will be having the next NISO Plus conference, and I think we'll be opening registration sometime in September-ish. But I'm excited about what's coming, even though it just, the previous one just ended. But I'm super excited about the next one already.
Well, if that's okay with you, Jason, I'm going to take a little rest between now and then.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much for that. And I am going to follow on with my top 3 takeaways. Jason is a tough act to follow, since he's kind of the special sauce who drove a lot of the happening of this meeting. But my top 3 takeaways, and this was I had attended an NFAIS meeting more than 15 years ago. So this was the first time I had been back with this community in person in quite some time. And the first thing that jumped out at me was this meeting is absolutely inclusive, and you can tell that this is intentional, and I commend the organization for doing that. This meeting is diverse, intentionally so. It is relative to other meetings of this size and this nature that I have attended in the last couple of decades of my professional career. It's internationally diverse. It is gender diverse. It is a mixture of commercial entities, nonprofits, intentionally diverse. How does NISO accomplish that? They, through the support of sponsors, offer very generous scholarships for folks to attend the meeting. So really do make an effort to ensure that everyone has a seat at the table and everyone's voice is heard. And again, it goes back to the mission. If you're going to have a successful collaboration, that's what's required. So that was my first thing, inclusive by design, and it's very noticeable and refreshing to see. Second point, this is slightly more down in the weeds. and this came out of a very good session that I attended on seamless access. But sometimes change is so complex, even a standard can't solve the whole problem. So I mentioned I sat in an outstanding session on seamless access, which is an implementation of a NISO guideline, RA21, designed really to ensure that we minimize the barriers to students, researchers, clinicians, to the information they need to do their work. How can we solve this problem in a way that addresses all the complexities that come with that? You know, certainly the connectivity is one, and the user rights are one, but also the privacy responsibilities that come with that. So many fascinating angles to this topic, and lots of discussion and lots of interaction. But I thought it was so interesting, what came out of the end was Christine, I'm going to mispronounce her name, Stone, who's the Director of Product Management and Ex Libris, was the moderator, and she was kind of wrapping things up for the group. And she said, we think there are more questions right now than answers, but we're fortunate to have an environment where these discussions can happen. It was interesting, I'm thinking of one comment, kind of put the cart before the horse, but Lisa Hinchcliffe from the University of Illinois was making a presentation during these sessions, and she basically outlined all the different authentication models that are in action on their campus at the University of Illinois. And I think, this is from memory now, but I think she identified 4 different authentication schemes that are currently in use just on their campus. So I think this illustrates, number one, this is a problem that can be solved, but sometimes just having that one standard, it still takes a lot of work and a lot of input and a lot of collaboration by these stakeholder groups to sort of move the ball down the field. So that was very interesting. You know, you just can't write the rule and say we're done. There's still more work to do. And then finally, I made reference to this in my earlier comments, but NISO really is the room where it happens for all you Hamilton fans out there. This is a place where everyone has a seat at the table. At one point in time, I looked up and literally was having a conversation with 3 women who have really changed the trajectory of the whole information ecosystem. And Tommy Usdin, who is the founder and head of Mulberry Technologies, and if you don't know that name, she and her organization, along with her partner Debbie LaPere, they wrote the NLM DTD and many other DTDs that are in use across our entire information ecosystem. Marjorie Halava, who is the founder and president of Access Innovations, just about every controlled vocabulary that I can think of, Marjorie and her team at Access have had a hand in, FTM and beyond, out into the larger world of more general scholarship in the humanities. So Marjorie Halava, and then Judy Russell, who's the current Dean of Libraries at the University of Florida. She's the former head of the U.S. Commission on Libraries and Information Science. So for me, basically a line worker in the industry, to have the access to these 3 women and their experience and their knowledge. But that's what this organization is about. You get that kind of diversity and that experience, and as Todd said, that's your opportunity to ask your questions, to find out more, and those conversations really do happen. So I think that really defines this meeting and makes it very unique and special. I was really humbled and appreciative of the opportunity to have those conversations. So those are my 3. And now we're going to open it up to you for your questions. It looks like we're running right on time, and I'm going to ask Nicole if she can jump in with any questions that have come in.
Sure, and just as a reminder, if you have any questions, just type into your toolbar, and we'll be sure to grab those and answer them. If we don't get to everybody's questions, we'll reach out to you following the session. So here's a good question. If a library has a standard that they would like to propose, where do they go or how do they get started?
I think that's for you, Jason. Jason? Uh-oh. I think we might have lost Jason.
Am I here now?
Oh,
yeah, there you are.
Okay.
So, Jason,
sorry about that.
I
don't know what. I did hear the question. So it was if a library has a standard that they're interested in, how do they get involved?
Yes.
Yes. So NISO has, I mean, if the very simple answer is you contact us. You can email me and I can direct you in the right direction. You can email, we have a contact form on the website, niso.org. But if you want to be involved in either existing or if you have ideas for new projects that NISO ought to be involved in, you can contact either myself or the contact on the website, and we can either direct you in the to a working group or to an existing group, or we can talk with you about what might be necessary to get something new started.
Okay, great.
That's great.
Here's another question. Meg mentioned scholarships. How or when to apply?
That's great. Yeah. So yeah, we were incredibly pleased with the outpouring of support from our sponsors this year. We were able to offer 12 full scholarships to attend NISO Plus, and we did those this year, at least, in two different sort of buckets. One of those was we had scholarship funds that were set aside specifically for equity and diversity purposes. So we were trying to get voices at the conference that are not typically at conferences and that are not typically given access to the sorts of C-level individuals that Meg pointed out. And we also had what we called early career scholarships. So again, sort of people who are early in their information careers and may not have the support necessary from their organization to go to a conference. They may not be of a level where that's the sort of thing that's done, but getting them in and hearing their voices as a part of the conversation was incredibly important to me and to us as a org. Those we expect will be repeated. We think that we will have continuing support for next year's conference, and I would expect that we will announce anything like that shortly, probably around the time that we do registration this year, so sometime in the September-October timeframe. But we'll know a little more as we sort of really do get started with the planning process. But we will definitely offer some form of scholarship to attend because it's an important thing to do for the community.
No, it's fantastic. And Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but you do offer for librarians a very attractive rate to attend the conference, even if you're on your own dime. Is that right?
Yeah, we did have some reduced rates for both early bird and a variety of different sort of members of our community. We haven't decided sort of exactly how everything's going to be broken down next year, but we do try to make sure that the conference is affordable for sort of everyone that wants to be there. The goal was to make it as low a cost as we possibly could for everyone.
Well, and I mean, as I mentioned, the conference is intentionally diverse. This is a big part of it, and absolutely, you could see all types of organizations, large, small, nonprofits, and then you could see all kinds of folks, different roles within those organizations within the sessions. And I think that you all are really delivering on that mission. It was very evident sitting in the room. So.
I'm super happy that was noticeable. I mean, obviously, yes, that doesn't happen by accident. We worked really hard for it, so it makes me very happy to know that it was something that you could notice.
Great. And one more question. Someone has inquired: is a conference overview, or are the sessions available, or videos available, or anything like that from the actual conference?
Yes, we are actually going to be building a repository for all of the content from the conference. So slides and videos and photographs and basically everything that we could think of to capture. We're going to have a repository for the conference. We're building it out because we're a standards organization. We're trying to do it in an incredibly standards-focused way. So we're doing things like
oh, the irony.
we're we're doing things like assigning DOIs to all of the material that is being hosted, and we're going to link ORCID IDs to sessions where individuals, have ORCID IDs that we can use, and we're going to be sort of really trying to make it as researcher and scholarship friendly as we can. So that's going to take a little bit of time to get all of that together, but there will be an open, available repository of all of the things that came out of 2020 as quickly as we can get it up.
Great.
Terrific. All right, well, we are just at time. I have to, first and foremost, thank our audience for joining us this afternoon, but also a special thank you, working off 48 hours ago, Jason Griffey, for joining us and filling us in on what was a terrific gathering, and future's looking really bright. So thanks, Jason. Thank you to the audience. Much. And, I should do. More information, and we'll make these slides available, and the presentation will be available on the Rittenhouse YouTube channel. But here's the NISO website, Jason's email, and my email. And, awesome. This is brought to you by Rittenhouse. If you have questions about how Rittenhouse plugs into all of this, you can certainly contact customer service or your sales representative. So we thank you, and have a good afternoon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.